if that therapist hasn't gone through that experience and delved into the deepest, darkest layers of themselves, and they're then holding someone else in that space, it's going to be very interesting with the next 5 to 10 years going in this country.
All right, on this episode, we went through with Jay Gray, who's a coach who runs retreats, deals with fighters for over 20 years. We talked about how to really connect with the authentic self, and he had an amazing story. Check this one out. Jay, welcome to the Blokes Lab.
How are we, sir?
Very well, very well. So just to start off, we'll get you to tell us a little bit about your journey and what got you into essentially where you're at now.
It's a long road, a long, arduous road. So I started at the age of probably 11 years old in martial arts. That quickly progressed to different forms of martial arts: kung fu, taekwondo, boxing, muay thai, improvised weapon work, jiu-jitsu, unarmed combat. Then from there, my first step to where I am now, I would say, started when I began studying to be a naturopath. So that was in 1994. Did a three and a half year out of a 4-year degree as a naturopath. I didn't finish the differential diagnosis on the remaining 6 months. During that time, I was a painter for 13 years, working on building sites.
Bit of a contrast between that and naturopathy.
Got to meet all different demographics on building sites. And then I studied a 2-year diploma of health science in massage, and then slowly went away from that natural medicine side and started delving into coaching. Initially started in my backyard. It would have been 1996. And within 6 months, I had over 100 people coming through my house. Had complaints from the council and had to find a bigger space. And then from there, went into a 200 square metre leased commercial building, which then progressed after a few years into a 500 square metre space. And then from there into a 1,200 square metre beast that had to be fueled because I created it. And COVID hit. And I closed the gym, had over 600 members, 11 trainers working for me, had a chiropractic clinic had a recovery centre, cafe. And then my real journey started. So that's a brief insight. I've been training fighters for close to 30 years. I've put in fighters for over 300 fights in different types of combat, from boxing to Muay Thai, to MMA even, many moons ago. So yeah, I've cornered and coached over 300 fights, which is a lot of fights. You see a lot of trauma in that time. And you see human potential untapped. So that's a brief version of where I'm at and how I've got there.
So you said like COVID was probably the big changing point for yourself. So what did you? It sounded like it was obviously you went through a lot of pain through that, a lot of financial pain, but obviously there was a blessing on the other side of that as well.
To me, it was a necessary thing that happened. Did it happen to me? Yeah. So I was working 70 to 80 hours. That's being on the light side. A week on about 4 hours sleep for 15 years. So I thought I was present at home. Been married for 22 years. Been with my wife for 30 and have 3 children, 21, 19 and 14. And I thought I was present and I now know that I wasn't present because I am present. So COVID hit. I never really had much of a choice. I had a landlord that wanted a large amount of money per month rent, and I had no capacity to earn money in the gym by what restrictions were placed on my business and capacity to earn income. So within 48 hours, I made a decision. It was the hardest decision I've ever made and the easiest decision I've ever made. And
how'd you feel after it?
Challenged, like my identity had been ripped away from me. That everything I stood for was no longer there. And I just had to connect with myself and process that. And I feel the skill of adaptation during that time was crucial for anybody. And I'm one resilient motherfucker, so I don't have any give up in me. During the 3-month lockdown, I built a gym at home on my 2-acre property. and have moved forward on a far better journey where I'm present.
Definitely. And how does that sort of shaped how you view business now? Because obviously you had that probably high revenue, high overhead, high pressure. Thinking a lot of people, and I've been there myself in the past. You think you're entrepreneurial, but all you're doing is fueling a beast that the profits often not even that much better than if you completely scale down. And if you got within a business like those sort of businesses, it's very hard to have any freedom in there as well.
Yeah.
You got to have some like seriously good systems and marketing and all that, and people and culture and all that. And that's a very, very difficult, particularly in fitness, a very difficult thing to do.
Especially the way I feel the fitness industry has shifted also.
Big time. Big time.
Especially the gym.
Yeah, and at that time, most definitely. We moved from a 500 square metre facility to a 1,200 square metre facility with the same amount of members, and our overheads went up by 300%. I can laugh about this now.
Yeah, I know.
So, with business, I was disconnected in there. I've always been a giver, and I loved helping people and loved implementing a path where they could change. But now what I do, I've always lived my passion, and now I live my purpose.
Exactly.
It's very different.
Big time. Big time. Definitely. And what do you think during that period of time it really demonstrated, firstly, about like the health of the population during COVID and how people viewed health?
Yeah.
I mean, business was one thing that it definitely showed up a lot of things, but what did you find it showed about people's health and how people view health?
Yeah, two really good questions. How people view health, I just feel, and still feel this now, is people need to take radical responsibility for their health. And they simply don't, as a generalisation, because I've seen it.
Yeah,
I've been with it for 30 years in my gym. There's always fucking excuses. There is. No, I 100% agree. I saw laughing. And it's...
definitely.
Yeah, so COVID was a tough one for me. Like, I was very reluctant to get the jab, and I left it to the very last minute, and the only reason I did that was I don't know, we had some conversations about this, but I trained fighters pretty much my whole life, and anyone in the fight game knows that remuneration in the fight game is few and far between. And just before COVID hit March 11, we had a fight lined up at the MGM Vegas for $250,000. It's a lot of money. And I never had a payday in boxing. I learned Muay Thai, and that got canned because of COVID. And then Jackson, who was ranked about 30 in the world at super featherweight at the time, we built some serious momentum with him, and then everything got shut down, as it did with a lot of people. So I said, if a fight comes up, when that time comes, I'll get the jab, just so we can keep continuing that path.
For sure.
So that was a bit of self-sacrifice for me, and I did, and that was the last time it happened.
It's fair to say, like, during that period, a lot of people, you'll get two demographics. You get a bunch of people that don't take responsibility at all, and they want the government to help them. They think, cleaning their hands, distancing themselves, and getting the jab, which are all strategies the government essentially talked about, but they didn't really talk about actually building the strength of the host and getting yourself fitter, focusing on the strength of the host.
There's no money there, and that's the problem also. That's why people there are used to giving their power away, to the government or anyone else on the stuff, so they can, because they are afraid to take responsibility and put the work required for that and see the results, and with the health in every level, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, everything.
Definitely.
People are disconnected completely. 100% every aspect,
wholeheartedly.
How crazy was it? Have you ever in your life seen a time where people have got, there's been more polarization and people have got more emotional? It's like never. People have been able to have differences of opinion, but during that, like, friends and family would split.
Yeah.
Legit, I couldn't believe it. Partners, exactly right. It was just such a demonstration of how psychological mass control can happen, and using so many things, like whether it's social media, different things to push someone one way or the other way.
For me, it was a real leveler, like a real bullshit detector.
Yeah,
to see exactly where everyone was at.
Yeah.
That's what I found. It's like,
It's crazy. In terms of moving on to, I know something you're passionate about is promoting, masculinity in a healthy way. What's your thoughts on where masculinity is at the moment in terms of where we're at now? I do, Dej.
There's a lot of confusion. What is modern masculinity? So I'll speak pretty openly about this because I was brought up in an era where if you're a man, you're a man. If you're a woman, you're a woman. So modern masculinity, for me, what virtues display masculinity for me? I think the 7 virtues of Bushido are pretty comparative to how I envisage that, and that's integrity, respect, honour, compassion, duty and loyalty, honesty and sincerity, and compassion. You encompass all that, and for me, that's the masculine. But then the flip side of that is we can't be 100% masculine. For me, it's a 70-30 mix. It's 70% masculine and 30% feminine. And what does the feminine stand for? For me, we look at weak men, if you want to call it weak, or disconnected men, I think is a better way to put it, as opposed to weak. Does that then offer a platform where women have to step more into the masculine? I also feel that there's and Theo's had a good discussion with me about this, rites of passage from boy to man. And if that doesn't exist, what is...
At what point does transition happen?
Where does it happen?
From there.
Because all tribal cultures have that.
Sure.
It's a lack of guidance or bad guidance.
So I had a very strong masculine role model with my father, but he, if I'm being honest, was probably disconnected from his emotional intelligence. But as a role model, he was a hard worker. He was loving, caring. He would give his last dollar. He had the biggest heart. But that's where I got my work ethic from. And, he treated my mum with respect. And he actually, he was one of 22 children to 2 different women
Jesus
in the jungle. Right? So he was shipped over here on a ship when he was 4 years old. And my grandfather was Scottish. And my grandmother was an Iban Dayak from a tribe of headhunters in the jungles of Borneo. And he was abused when he was a child. But he never laid a hand on me in my 47 years on this earth. So he broke a very big cycle that takes a lot of energy. So now I understand a little more, and I think, well, maybe that's how he showed up, but his emotional intelligence couldn't have been stepped into because he expended so much energy.
Of course,
that cycle. This is how I'm seeing it now.
Plus also, he never got exposed to the things that we are getting exposed to.
Very true.
And what have you done to, I guess, build your emotional intelligence that he hasn't had access to, that you've broke the cycle with?
So, I'm no stranger to crying, although I was always told, it's weak to cry. I think most men in that sort of environment were brought up that way. I have a very emotional partner. And when I mean emotional, she's just very emotionally intelligent, and that challenges me. So especially when I was disconnected and not present when I was in my gym. Now that I'm very connected and very present, and I've connected the groin to the brain, I've stopped here in the middle and realised at the halfway points where most men need to go. Now I'm very in touch with my emotions, and I'll express it freely. And with my kids, I think it's very good that they get to witness that as well. I always knew Dad was a hard worker, and he could grind and he could push hard, and he was a provider and a protector and all that shit. It's good stuff to have, but I did that naturally. So what don't I do naturally? And that's opening this.
For sure. I felt the same, with myself as well. It's only probably the last year and a half that I've been able to connect with that, because it's very similar upbringing. I've had the resilience, hardworking, very masculine, all those sort of features, but everything feminine was just sort of pushed aside, and emotional intelligence was the weakness. So connecting with the heart was the biggest thing I've had to go through. So in terms of, we've talked about a bit about, I guess, what some aspects of healthy masculinity are. The unhealthy masculinity that's almost getting promoted at the moment, do you feel that that's, obviously that seems like that's building up more and more momentum. What are your sort of thoughts with that in terms of what needs to be done and your concerns for the direction it's going?
Oh, I think more men need to stand up. If there's more examples of healthy masculine, of course, then toxic masculinity, then to a certain extent gets denounced. There's not enough real men in this world, and there's not enough role models, and there's but the exposure is very different. Like when I was young, we weren't exposed. Like we never had phones.
Of course, yeah.
There was no mobile phones. There was no YouTube. There was no Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. We never had any of that. So it's a very different environment that our kids are being brought up in.
Of course.
But I look at that and I go, well, I feel quite grateful and fortunate that I was brought up in the time I was, so I can then offer those experiences to my children. Like, this is how it's meant to fucking be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, I'm not sure.
And definitely, yeah, you go.
Do you feel also that what is portrayed as a healthy masculine role model nowadays,
It's not.
It's
Yeah.
Is it? Like,
No,
that's
no,
a thing,
not at
you
all.
know, and all the examples that we have, like, out there, you know, I feel personally that it actually confuses us.
I think we're confused. That's
Big time, yeah.
That's
It's
the thing,
confusing.
you know. And there's so much out there also, like you especially like from Hollywood, from celebrities, even from the music industry and all the stuff, even from sports and everything, like what is actually portrayed to us as healthy masculine role model. I still feel like it's really not.
Yeah.
It may have some aspects and all the stuff, but at the same time, there's so much darkness and dark aspects and all the stuff, or toxic aspects, you know. And you see so many men also that they are popular or successful in ways and all the stuff that they are told what to say or how to be and all the stuff and what to portray out there, you know. And by that, at the same time, if you're already betraying yourself and you're not speaking your truth, but you're actually saying something just because someone, you know, influenced you in ways and all the stuff, like, let's say
more likes and followers.
Yeah, like that's the thing. There's no, you know, you talked about honor also in the beginning and integrity. There's not much of that out there.
Yeah.
It's rare when we come across it.
And you got to do a lot of work to be able to be that person that can show up and be authentic as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, because so much conditioning is happening that pushes us the other way, that you've got to break that and do a lot of work to be able to, I think, confidently know what your truth is and then speak it regardless of repercussions, which can take some balls, depending on
feel also
what you're talking about.
Do you feel also everything that we have experienced, especially the last 3 years with censorship, had a big role on all that?
With censorship?
Yeah,
for sure.
Like censoring also, like all the ideas and...
That's why I feel like I've just removed myself from Facebook after, I don't know, 13, 14 years. And I haven't thought about it once since I removed myself. It's the best thing I've ever done. There's nothing on there that interests me.
Yeah.
Right? Seriously. So I'm on Instagram because Instagram's pretty cool. Look at all the shit that I like. There's muscle cars, there's tattoos, there's breathwork. Follow all the shit I don't want to follow.
Yeah.
So on that, with censorship, I feel that for myself, I've got to have impact and show up the way I do in the fucking real world. And when I do that, that will organically filter down to the masses. That's that's my plan.
Yep.
I mean, by putting a post up and someone reads it and a story on top of the other 1,000 that they've seen, it's very confusing. But it's challenging for me. I'm sure you feel the same too. Like, there's so many men that I've coached over. I've coached close to 10,000 people in 30 years. It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I've seen...
you learn a lot about people.
I learn a lot about people. And more so, I learn a lot about myself.
Yeah, of course.
And I haven't come across many real men. That ticks every box.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's on a path and they're all a work in progress, including myself. But men that really honour themselves, that have respect, integrity, that are... For me, a man is a person of their word. That honour the feminine... because that's when the feminine will step into her power, when you allow her to do that, and she has that capacity to do that. So there's lots of different questions in there. But
no, definitely.
The way we're going with 2 boys in my house, and they see the shit they see, like we've spoken about this, Yeah, I've just got to sit them down sometimes and go, no, that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Just get them to look through a different lens and offer them a different perspective based on my experience. But what they're being fed is...
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
And the hard part is because you got, as you said, we didn't have phones when we were kids. I was probably, Theo and I, I was about 17, 18 when they became a bit more mainstream. And even then, that wasn't smartphones. Yeah. That was just, you could play Snake on the fucking Nokia. Yeah. But like, in terms of like, that point wasn't until I was 23 that came out. So at least we got the developers as kids. So, but the thing is, the narrative can get controlled via the phone, which everyone's on, which the parents can't control. Yeah. That's the one. The other part is there's more and more parents that are both working. So there's less education coming from the parents to the kids. Yeah. So they're getting educated from the phone. Yeah. The school system has probably never been great. Yeah. But like these days, it's a whole nother level of what they're teaching them. So there's so much, they're getting educated for all these ways that previously the parents had more impact, so you can sort of see that path is concerning.
They're not even getting educated; they're getting indoctrinated.
Indoctrinated. Sorry,
It's a little scary, but and that's why we're trying to enlist more men to stand up and show up in the spaces that we're offering and holding them accountable to that as well.
Sure. What are your thoughts on the feminism movement that's sort of been pushed along with that?
So I don't look into it too much, but from my knowledge and readings and exposure, that let's say you've got a single mum at home, right, and she's bringing up children, she, to a certain extent, has to take on a masculine role.
Of course, yeah.
So when she does that, she will denounce her power as a feminine to a certain extent. So we then look at that and we look at feminism. I feel like that approach has been really taken the wrong way. And I feel like, and this might, I don't know how we're going to share this, but this is just my view.
Go there, Joe.
I feel like a lot of women, and maybe through no fault of their own, just to what they've been told or conditioned to believe, feel like for them to be a strong feminine, they have to have more masculine. Like they step into a male role as a CEO, and they've got to wear a suit, as opposed to looking feminine. So I think we've got it all back to front, man. Because for me, the feminine is truly powerful. I love women, and I love when they're in their power. But that's very hard, and it's very uncommon when we have so many weak, disconnected men.
Of course. And sort of going into that, when you talk about weak, disconnected men, what are your thoughts on, like a lot of, there's some women are building gender and careers, and there's others that are becoming boss babes via other ways, like OnlyFans.
Oh, we're going to go there.
We've got to go there, You were talking about weak men and boss babes. We're going to go there. So what are your thoughts with that? Because that's building the whole, sugar baby culture, OnlyFans culture, which is, I find, since COVID is just exploded in the last sort of 3 years.
The fact that a woman needs to feel that she has to go there and dishonour, for me this is what it is, dishonour herself and degrade herself to serve or objectify the masculine, for me it's disgusting. Like I'm all about mystery and earning that through my actions, but if you can pay $2.50 or I don't know what it costs because I've never done it.
Yeah.
So
it's for free.
It's for free. Not all of them for free.
Come on, Joe, I've looked at your bank account, mate.
Pay a fee to see a woman naked doing different acts. I just, that doesn't equate in my head.
Yeah.
On any level.
No, for sure.
Do you feel also that that happens to an extent because women have also been disconnected from their bodies?
Totally. Yeah. Are they seeking validation? More than likely. That. It's sad. I actually find it quite sad. There's nothing about it that. It's just a sad state of affairs.
And how bad is it going to be in 15 years? Not even 15, probably 10. Not 10 years. 10 years. Not even 10 years.
What's out with AI now? which is going to replace like all the live, all of those women, all the stuff, because AI can create literally anything that you want, and you can have conversations and all that stuff. So imagine how that is going to shift. and how men are also gonna lose their way even more.
Of course,
that, you know,
no, 100%.
I mean, on the masculine, like, because I've got a daughter as well. She's 21, so I can relate to that to a certain degree. Like I would visualize her doing that and how that would make me feel. And like I've always said, be the man that you want your daughter to be with. And if I close my eyes and visualize who I am, is that the person I would want my daughter to be with? Fuck yes. But that's me saying that.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like a lot of men could say that.
Yeah.
Because I trust myself intimately. I have a lot of self-worth, a lot of self-belief. You know, I've gone and taken myself places to where a lot of people have never gone. But we'll get there soon.
Definitely. And do you think that says, because you're, how old are you again? You're
47.
You're 47. So, but would the 22-year-old Jay be able to say the same thing? Yeah. And that's the hard part. So it takes so many years as a man to develop into that. That by the time we're
complete circle.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And I'm like, is that why I was doing what I was doing? Oh, this makes a lot more sense now.
No, definitely.
But why not also with all that work that's happening out there? You know, like that so many men are also at the same time stepping up. You know, and doing all this work and facilitating and everything. For the young men to also understand those things, why not having 22-year-old men that actually have all this, you know, understanding and knowledge that we have now, you know, at our 30s and our 40s, you know, and that's the whole point of it. Because if we guide the youngsters like properly from a very young age, they can easily be at 22.
Of course,
you know,
of course.
Really different.
That's for me.
And actually be men from that.
That's the exciting part for me. Is having young men come into those spaces and go, oh man, you don't realise how fortunate you are. I wish I was here when I was 22 because this is super powerful.
Yeah, it was crazy. I saw his son doing that last retreat.
18.
He's 18,
He did his first retreat when he was 14 in Thailand with me, which I'll elaborate on, which was full on.
In terms of with your retreats, that's obviously something that's the core of really what you're doing in terms of mass, deep sort of change with people at the moment. Tell us about your journey in terms of with retreats that you've been doing retreats for a while, but how you got from doing retreats, doing them yourself to running them to now, like how you actually run your retreats right now.
So I had 17 trips to Thailand, and during that time, probably did 10 retreats. And it was all about putting people in a place they couldn't hide anymore, where they had to overcome adversity and develop resilience. That was the main goal. So we'd go over, it'd be 10 to 11 days in Phuket on a little place called Soi Tayed, and there'd be 6-8 hours training every day. Brutal, but there was also the flip side where they'd have ice baths and saunas and yoga and Thai massage every day, which was pretty cool, and really good nutrition and food. But they'd always come back and I'd find, because most of them were members of my gym, they'd always regress to their habitual ways once they got into their spaces that they come back to. And then I started to think, well, how can I make this deeper or have more longevity? And this is a long story, I'm going to cut it really short. I was exposed to some plant medicine a fair few years ago from one of my best friends, Blokes.
Which you organise yourself.
Yes, I organised myself. He didn't want, speaking of OnlyFans, he didn't want that vibe Blokes because he'd seen it all before. And he goes, I want something special. So we organised a San Pedro ceremony, which was next level. So that's where it all started.
Yeah, okay.
And then we had a few other experiences, and then I had some light bulbs go off, and I thought, I need to incorporate plant medicine into my retreats. Maybe that will help. And the rest is history. So on the Thailand retreats, my son was 14. He had his first retreat, was in a very dark place at the time. And the last day we called it Hell Day. And it was 11 hours of non-stop training. So it was up Big Buddha, which is brutal if you've ever ran Big Buddha. Strength and conditioning, stools, carries. And the last 2 hours was 10 rounds on the Thai pads with a Thai pad holder. And our instruction to them was, we want you to break him. And he had a guy called Namsak Noi, who's known as the emperor of Muay Thai. He's actually the most, he fought Sanchai twice, beat Sanchai twice. So this guy's amazing. He happened to be at Radachai gym at the time. And he held 10 rounds of pads for my son when my son could barely stand up. my son would knee and kick, and Numsuck Noi would kick him back and knee him and sweep him, and he'd smash down on the ground, on the ring. And I'm standing there as a father watching this at the age of 14, and I'm like, shit. Usually I'd jump in and I'd do something. But it was a process I felt like he needed to go through. And for that matter, I needed to go through as a father. He got through the 10 rounds. I think it was round 6. He looked over at me and he had tears rolling down his eyes uncontrollably. He goes, Dad, I'm fucking done. I've had enough. I said, you'll be right, mate. Keep going. Because I've had these experiences
of course,
from a young age over there. And he got through it, and that was his path. That's where it all started. So then we started, incorporating plant medicine. So the process for me is, on the retreats, there needs to be a crisis that exists first. And that can be loss of life, terminal illness, separation, divorce, whatever, car accident. Now, what happens with our current system with mental health is then there's intervention with psychiatry, psychology, counselling, plant medicine. For me, there's a big void missing here. After that, there needs to be integration and maintenance. Now, what happens with trauma and emotions is we don't think emotions, we feel emotions. So we can't talk our fucking way out of trauma. We have to feel our way back through it. And when we go from this here, crisis, to psychiatry and psychology, and we just talk about it and medicate it, there's the massive part here that's missing is the development of a strong, resilient body and mind. And that's where I come in. So that for me encompasses, the physicality, the strength and conditioning, the mobility, the breath work, nutrition, ice and heat immersion, all of the above as a system. Once we've developed this and then we intervene with whatever that looks like, for us it's plant medicine,
breath work,
somatic body work, then the most important thing once the intention is set is the integration and the maintenance. And this is where it's all fucked up. And this is why mental health in this world is at an all-time peak, and it keeps ascending. 480 youth suicides last year in Australia. That's from the age of 13 to 18. It's way too many. But why is it going up? What we're doing isn't working.
For sure.
So we're going to change it up with you, Doris.
Yeah.
So what are your, on top of that, that's one of those things that, people often have a big breakthrough at a retreat, whether it's, and they have these massive breakthroughs. It's a game changer. They go to ayahuasca and Peru and come back and they view life differently. Yeah. For them that don't continue to keep doing that work, because often people just can't go back to Peru all the time. What sort of recommendations would you have for people who have had big breakthroughs to keep doing? What sort of work should they be doing?
For me, it's to keep going deeper about the medicine. So
or practices,
that's just a tool.
Yeah.
And what I found, because I've done a few journeys now with different medicines, and what's lacking and missing is the integration component. Because most people are in such a compromised state, you then blast them with medicine. Okay, see you later, you're on your own. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Generally, they'll regress. So there needs to be accountability from those that are holding them in that space, but also, personal accountability. And there needs to be integration protocols and systems that are put in place to help them along that journey. And it's not happening. No. Across the world, it's not happening.
Of course.
There's so many, and especially even for myself, because I've been through so many experiences and, work with so many different healers and all the stuff. The problem is, it's the mindset, first of all, and the conditioning that we have that you're going to use a medicine or you're going to have an experience and that's it, you're done. Okay? It's going to solve all your problems. And unfortunately, we carry all that into those spaces also. People will go, they will have this profound experience, and especially with medicines like ayahuasca, because they work in such a holistic way, mind, body, and spirit. You purge so much that you hold on your body and your energetic body also, and you all of a sudden, all this weight has lifted. You've understood yourself in such a deeper way because you've seen so much more of yourself and your psyche. But then you go back and you don't really make any change. You go back to the same environment, same fucking triggers, the same fucking home, same fucking job, and you don't actually make any significant change. So what happens? People go back and basically they immerse themselves to the same fucking thing. They haven't implemented any of the lessons or the realizations, insights, anything that they've learned there. And they just, you see it all the time. After 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, they become the same exact person as before. And what happens? That profound experience stays at the back. Oh yeah, I had ayahuasca. I had this amazing experience either in the jungle or wherever you did it, But you can't do it that way. So we have to actually educate people even before they have those profound experiences and work with such powerful tools to really understand the process, before, during, after, how they have to actually shift even in a physical level and take responsibility in every way. Like there's so much that needs to be said, and it all starts from education.
Definitely, and it's one of those things as well, like in the whole, this space, there's such a big need for people crying out for help, and and a lot of in the spiritual space, and you've both done so much work. I mean, you've coached, as you said, 10,000 people, so you understand people you've done it for decades, coaching them, even better. Exactly right. And you've been on those journeys, and you've done a lot of work on yourself, and same with Theo as well. So you guys, I mean, even though there's no, I guess, with this sort of stuff, no accreditation to run this stuff, which is the good and the bad. I mean, you don't need that. But the thing is, it's more you're having to understand, like, what are the right people to take on that journey. Because there were some retreats like, Paul, you run, and it's life-changing. And I've done it personally, it's life-changing. And then there's, for other people, it's, here's an opportunity who don't have that. They don't have the chops for it. They haven't done the work. And then they can take a bunch of people into this space where they're vulnerable. They can almost fuck them up, and really do it, totally. Do damage to them.
I meet face to face with the individual that is called by it, and I'll have a 2.5, 3 hour meeting with them face to face. That's not happening in a lot of other circles. And so my old gym, I love my old gym. I had a lot of amazing experiences, but that place was a trauma pit. And I know this now.
A lot of gyms are.
Yeah, and a lot of people hide in the physical, but I'm more aware of it now. I met some amazing people, had some amazing experiences, but there was a lot of trauma in my gym because I had open arms and open door, and I was a giver, and I used to expend a lot of energy helping people. And I look at it now, and the biggest thing for me going into a sacred ceremonial experience is safety and trust. And if I've met with someone, they'll know straight away whether there's some level of safety and trust. And you go into a space, like let's say an ayahuasca journey, and you've never met the facilitator or the healer that's going to hold it. You've had no pre-questionnaire screening. You've had no contact at all. You don't know who you're going to be sitting with. And there's 30 people in a TP. What's going to happen? Potentially, it can re-traumatise certain individuals. And then you come out of that, and then there's nothing after that. There's a fucking massive disconnect.
Of course.
Yep. For me, if it comes from a place of caring, that's the biggest thing. But safety and trust, people are never going to open up to their wounds if they do not feel safe or trusted. And that's, for me, what the physical's about first, is put them in a space where, 1, they can't hide, 2, we help remove boundaries and layers of resistance. And they do, then we build up some sort of trust network with them and relationship during that 6-hour period or 36-hour period if you're on a 5-day retreat. And then they also bond with the people that they're going through the retreat with. And then there's a level of trust and safety before they go in.
Definitely.
And for me, that's massive. That's why we have such profound experiences with it.
And that's the thing, even on a personal level, like we actually, like everything that we facilitate, we have put ourselves through.
It's the competency aspect as well.
There's not even any level of what's that word, like people respect us because we have done that even ourselves, like consistently, and that's our path also. I personally, even when I started with Jay doing the retreats, the first 2 retreats, I immersed myself through the whole experience. So I literally went through the whole thing with every individual, bonded with them, created a safe and a trust, and then actually facilitated what, my ceremony and everything else.
Which is the last time you're going to do that. But you've done it. You've been there.
I'm going to keep doing it. But that's the thing, for people to feel safe and trust you, you have to earn that also.
Of course.
Of course. There's so many people
you got to walk the walk before.
And that's the thing. And think about it also, like, we are 4 people on that space. We all have like thousands of hours spending with people in so many different like levels and modalities, and that's the thing. That combination of so much experience and knowledge in so many different levels that carries on through the whole experience, and that's the safety also there. Definitely.
So here's the flip side, right? So they've just made psilocybin and MDMA
legal for medical prescription.
Okay. So who do you think is going to have access to that?
Obviously the medical system. Of course.
Okay. It's going to come at a cost, obviously. So there's certain people who won't be able to afford access to that. But for me, the biggest thing is, if a psychiatrist is delivering that medicine in a medical setting, that's where the disconnect's going to happen. If that therapist hasn't gone through that experience and delved into the deepest, darkest layers of themselves, and they're then holding someone else in that space, it's going to be very interesting with the next 5 to 10 years going in this country.
Yeah.
That's a big concern for me.
Yeah, definitely. And they're not going to make that a requirement. There's no chance they'll make that a requirement as well. For people to have some, go through it themselves and have some level of experience in.
Because there's no,
of course,
remuneration.
The training that people have to undergo in regards to actually facilitating stuff like that. It's so. It's such a big commitment in a personal level to actually go there and understand what you are working with, because you're actually working with a spirit. You really need to understand yourself in depth, but at the same time work with that medicine before you even administer something, all that stuff. But then it's also the pharmaceutical aspect. You have big pharma entering that space and all the stuff, plus it's going to be a synthetic drug. It's not going to be anymore a natural thing that comes from the earth, properly like prepared and all that stuff. There's massive difference.
Of course.
So the consciousness of the medicine gets taken out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely.
That for me is where most of the power is. So.
In terms of like when you're doing like men's work and helping blokes, do you, in terms of the number one thing, if people are struggling with their mental health, where do you sort of say, if a guy just says, a client comes in and he goes, I'm just battling with shit at the moment, how do you sort of direct them in terms of the things they should be doing?
Become a really good listener.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
Create a space for them where they feel safe to share. And then the tools that I would give them to start with would be to upregulate and deregulate the nervous system through breath. Ice and breath. That's where I'd start. Because if you compound an already, what's the word I'm after? Compromise, thanks there. Nervous system, you're going to go backwards. So if they're coming in a sympathetic state, we want to try and put them in a parasympathetic state.
Yeah.
So that's my goal, first and foremost. And then we can start adding physical stimulus. And then it's progressive.
Yeah. Do you feel also, especially even with medicine work, but also like in general with even other retreats, even breath work, for example, like especially cathartic breath work, like workshops and all that stuff, do you feel that there is a lack of proper understanding of the individuals that they enter those spaces? And do you feel that if someone is, for example, on the red zone, their nervous system is so hyper aroused, compromised and all the stuff, do you feel even going like that into doing some work, you feel it can still create like a big problem?
100%.
Yep.
100%. And that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
So, we've sat in ceremony a few times, and it really highlights where everyone's at. And the fact that there isn't any pre-screening or connection or relationship that's developed before you go into such a sacred space, but a place where people are going to get really uncomfortable and vulnerable. It's crazy. It's backwards. And can they have releases? Yeah, of course they can. Can they have a profound experience? Most definitely. Could they have a better one? Fuck yes. like, it's such a rare opportunity that people build up the courage to put themselves in that space that we have to take advantage of that for them. You know, so they get the best possible experience out of where they put themselves. Because, you know, it's not, as you know, it's not easy.
No, definitely.
You know, but that's where all the gold is, in the uncomfortable.
Of course.
Most people don't want to delve into it. And I've delved into the uncomfortable pretty much my whole life. That's where all the growth is.
Sure. And in terms of like, how important do you think it is for men to get support from other men?
Oh, I never had it. In the whole time I was in the gym, I was surrounded by a bunch of boys. And it used to trigger me, it used to make me angry. And I would act out in a way, looking back at it now and reflecting, was the wrong way. But it was where my state of consciousness was at. It's where my nervous system was at. It's where I was at in life, you know. I'd be telling people to do something, and I had to get to a point where I'd say it 6 times, and then I'd fucking yell. Get aggressive. I'm like, are you fucking not hearing me?
Yeah.
Now, that shit doesn't faze me, because I don't surround myself with people that aren't on my level.
Of course. And
I've, you know, like I think I mentioned this before, I'm a natural giver, but I used to give with expectation of receiving in that gym. And I never used to get it. So now I give with 0 expectation and I receive 10 times more.
Exactly.
But now I've got boundaries.
Of course, yeah. That's exactly right. That's the thing.
So,
that's the thing.
You know, I'm vibrating at a very high frequency because I don't allow those people in my space anymore.
Of course. And say if you have someone as well, just in terms of guys really finding themselves, say you have a guy who's been in a long-term relationship for a long time, you know, so much of his identity, you know, he could have his own identity then, you know, 20 years into a relationship, but when it starts to become a couple identity and they lose themselves. So once things, you know, so often now you see more and more divorces, people falling apart, and then these guys, they're on their own and then they're fucked. They're completely lost. You know, they barely get access to their kids anymore. This sort of thing. What's I guess advice for guys like that? It's can I guess be a similar thing to the mental health question, but more about these guys actually starting to figure out who the fuck they are again as an individual before they start. You know,
spend some time by yourself. Get comfortable being by yourself. I love my fucking own company.
Yeah, same. It's dangerous. It's dangerous.
I sit and have conversations with myself. I make myself laugh. I could be by myself for weeks and be happy. Like people that aren't comfortable with who they really are, or they've suppressed a lot of stuff, they're the ones that will seek attention and being held all the time. Like, I train a lot of men and coach a lot of men, and a lot of them have been through divorces, like heavy divorces. But they're always seeking, I find, seems to be a common theme, I need to be with someone. What they really need is they need to be alone, and they need to connect with themselves and really learn why they're here. I think when they do that, that's when they can then invite the right energy back into that space.
Definitely. And back to like with your fighting, in terms of what did you, from training fighters from all those years, what's probably the main thing that you really learned about fighters just from coaching them? And obviously they're very different.
I would say out of most sporting prowesses, it's where most of the trauma lives, would be in fighters. And I've trained some absolute beasts, but they would come in and with a lot of trauma. Be an outlet for them, and I would channel that in a semi-healthy way, in a controlled way, in an environment that was a lot safer than doing it on the street, so to speak. Human potential for me has been the biggest one. Like when someone comes in and think that their threshold is here, and I push it to here, and then when they realise what they're actually capable of, where they go from there is huge. And I've had, you know, one of my guys, Chris, he came to me at 17, had the biggest chip on his shoulder. He'll laugh if he hears this. And we basically bashed it out of him over a period of a few months. And I love him now, like I still see him every now and then. So on his 9th fight, he fought a guy that had 430 fights in Thailand with MMA gloves, full Thai rules with MMA gloves. Got 9 fights.
Yeah.
19 years old.
First 400.
Yeah, and he almost stopped him.
Yeah.
Gave him a straight right down the pipe, and his legs went. I'm like, oh! But it ended up being a split decision, and he lost, but he didn't get hurt.
Yeah, okay.
So how does that happen? How does a guy go from 9 fights to being competitive and almost stopping a guy that had 430 odd fights?
Exactly right. Do you feel, I've always chatted this with Theo, to become a world champion, like proper elite world, like say for example, in fighting, it's so freaking hard. Do you feel like you need to be almost, you got to be able to tap into that dark side and be a bit traumatized to become that person?
I think it's generally the case.
Yeah. Whereas if someone's done a bit more work on themselves, a bit more integrated, they almost, do you feel like they wouldn't quite be able to get there at that level?
Yeah,
or
it depends on how raised that consciousness is when they get there, as to whether they then come to the realisation that, why am I bashing another man?
Yeah.
Why am I inflicting pain on another man? I'm all about the healthy man-on-man combat, because I've done it my whole life, and it can be healthy. But if you've got someone, all my successful fighters have trauma. That's a fact.
There's no way that you're not coming from a very hard background and, pretty tough childhood, because that's the biggest driver, man. Like, they have so much pain inside. I feel that, it has to get channeled.
It's just too difficult for people who haven't.
But to be a world champion, there's a lot of other variables that come in. But that's, like Theo said, that's the biggest driver for sure.
What's the biggest misconception about fighters that general public wouldn't be aware of?
The amount of hours that they spend in the gym, the return on investment.
For you or them, or both? Both, coach and for the athlete,
both.
Yeah.
The amount of hours I've spent over the past 25, 30 years and the return on it, it's not why I did it. It wasn't to get a remuneration. I love seeing people succeed and achieve, but it's just not comparative.
No.
And then when you get to the higher end, especially boxing, which is the field I've been most in for the past 10 years, it's the dirtiest world you can imagine. I'm talking dirty. And unless you've got money and big backing, it doesn't matter how skillful or how much trauma you've got, you're not going to be a world champion. And that's a hard pill to swallow when your boyhood dream is to be a world champion. And you could be the best fighter in the world, but unless you've got...
aligned to the right people. Yeah.
And that's also hard for me because my ethical compass is very high, my moral compass. So to navigate through that with some really dirty humans, it's not a nice
difficult.
Sorry, do you feel also that there's a lot of athletes out there, especially fighters, that they actually go into the ring and all the stuff, or they go through the training and sparring consistently, and just go there to punish themselves, and because they feel so like such an internal turmoil, and just go in just so they can get punched and just receive that beating
and become numb. 100%. I've seen it in my gym in sparring. I've seen guys come in and they're wobbling and they look like they've got concussion. I'm like, no, you're not doing another round. No. I said, you're not doing another fucking round. And then they jump out. And then I've seen it in the ring where they're so not present. And especially, I don't see it with my fighters because I'm ruthless and I have, there's a level that I accept with my fighters. And we'll be in the ring. I'm big on the nervous system, and I'll be watching the opponent round 1, round 2, breathing out of the mouth. The coach is screaming in the face, going, you need to do this, you need to do that. And my guy's nasal breathing, he has ice on the vagus nerve. He's taking big, deep breaths, and then I'll deliver very clear, concise messages from a calm state. By round 5 or 6, his nervous system's gone, the opponent. And then I'll go take him out this round. And my fighter will look at me and go, you're serious? So he's gone. And the plan may be hit him to the body, fake low, go high, take him out. And every time I've delivered that message, it's happened. Because what I can see and what they can see when they're in the moment is very different. And so being present, and that's where trust comes in. They trust me to deliver that message and they'll act upon it. Where I look at the other corner, I'm like, man. And now, if we're talking about plant medicine and doing that inner work, if fighters did that work, and some do, the difference in how they would show up is exponential.
Because the thing is, like, you can't enter the ring and all of a sudden have this chaos inside your mind, that takes literally over, and it's completely subconscious and all the stuff. And straight away, it pulls you away from being present, with your opponent. And all of a sudden, your game plan and everything, all the preparations that you've done, it goes completely out, man. And you can see it straight away when a fighter is not actually present and properly prepared the nervous system, like actually enter the ring. You can see it. Like they're gone. There's nothing there.
And there's levels with how big the lights are as well. Because they might go to one, like a local show, then they're fine. Then they go to the UFC, then they go to UFC title fight, and then it completely.
What preparation have you done to prepare yourself for this month?
I
mean, I remember putting some of my fighters through, the longest one was 24 rounds non-stop, boxing. Show me, I won't use the word, but show me this, or you're going to stay in round after round until I see it. And one fighter in particular was in for 24 rounds. I still didn't see it. It was wasting my time. So. But
did you end up showing it or not? You didn't?
No, he didn't show it.
He did show it.
It's not there.
Yeah, okay.
It's so deep inside him. But I just said, you're kidding me. We've done 24 rounds. How many rounds do you want to do for a 6-round fight?
Do yourself a favour, shop for a bit.
Unbelievable. Fresh guys coming in every 3 minutes.
Fucking hell. Speaking of crazy challenges, I know you like going deeper and testing yourself. Everything. What's the craziest thing you've done in terms of?
Probably the most recent one. On that, I've raised probably over $250,000 for different charities over 20 years, and it's always been not so intelligent on my point now that I look back at it, but it's always been me putting myself in the hurt locker to raise awareness and funds for a greater cause than me. Telethon, Breast Cancer WA, Autism WA, Beyond Blue, recently Zero to Hero, which is for mental health and youth suicide prevention. The hardest challenge I've done lots, but probably because this was the most recent, I would say it was the hardest. So I had a few guys that I coach and they said, look, we need to do a challenge. I said, no, leave it with me. I'll come up with something. And if it's come out of my head, it's going to be hard. And so we went from bailing up to Donnelly River and back was the plan, 112 kilometres. We carried 454 kilo of weight, weighted vests and kettlebells, which is indicative of how many youth suicides there were in 2020. And we did 480 reps of cleans, swings, clean and presses, burpees, chin-ups, push-ups, and jump squats. 480 was the number of youth suicides in 2021. And I'm talking, I had some real fit clientele next to me. I'm talking Army guys, SOGs, so tactical response prison guys, real fit, dedicated people. A lot of training. It was arduous, but the message was, to heal, you've got to go inside. And when you're walking for 13 hours in training with 50 kilos on your back at sometimes, there's nowhere to hide in that space. That's the hardest thing I've done. It was 50 hours in total, sleep deprived. I was hallucinating at about 34 hours, I think it was the moment. My feet felt like they had been cut by razor blades and had acid poured all over them. I was slurring my speech. At the halfway mark, most of those that started it pulled out because that was their limit, that was their threshold, which is fine. Much to my detriment sometimes, I don't have an off valve. Like if I say I'm going to start something, I'm going to fucking finish it, no matter how that makes me feel after. And I'm actually still recovering from that challenge. And that was in November? I'm still inflamed and severely compromised.
Yeah, we're in February now.
We're in February. And we raised $42,000 for Zero to Hero, and they run teenage camps. And each participant on that camp, it costs about $1,000 to have those teenagers on those camps. So potentially we could have been pivotal in 42 teenagers' lives. So.
And what did you learn about yourself on that challenge? Because you would have went to that place. So you would have,
I went to a pretty cool dark place actually. I had a conversation with myself many times, but what it consolidated for me unequivocally was that I'm about as resilient as they come, and I'm on the right path. And I need to keep doing this work, leading from the front, and hopefully others will see what that and feel what that looks like, and will step up to the plate if they feel called by it. And that's the only people I want behind me.
Definitely.
To then challenge me. Because I've never had anyone, if I'm being honest, I've never had anyone in my life that I've really looked up to that have set a standard that I wanted to strive for. So I've had to be that guy. But this man, in the space that we're in now, that's someone that I definitely look up to and vibrate with but until
and vice versa.
Yeah, until there, no one.
Okay.
Which is a pretty lonely space to be.
Of course, yeah. 'Cause you always need that person as a mentor, or who's just always just levels and levels and levels above you in whatever space, and it's hard when you're that guy.
Yeah. I have seen that now, more so with upskilling and upgrading my toolkit. Dr. Gabor Mate, I've done his compassionate inquiry course. There's other guys that I'm following in that field, so I can hold people in a space,
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm doing that sort of work, but no one that I look up and go,
that's a no. Yeah.
There's always something missing.
yeah, always something missing.
Yeah. That's the thing. And that the reason why we respect each other so much, it's because of that. We immerse ourselves in every way possible. That's the thing. And the challenge is a big one also, and that's what I wanted to ask you also. Do you feel that one of the first steps that a lot of young men have to actually take is actually challenge themselves, especially physically?
For sure. I mean, I get a lot of people inquiring with these retreats, I don't want to do the physical. Back up a minute. I just want to do that other part down the end.
And look, and just to confirm, that wasn't me.
You were awesome, man. You're awesome. So that's it. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to do the physical? So for me, you've got to encampass all of it. There has to be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. You can't jump here.
Just cherry pick what you want. Yeah.
There's so many spiritual fairies here throwing out fairy dust, but they're not grounded. They don't have this.
Yeah, man.
And that's where, for me, you can go here and go there, but if it starts here, and that's why every time I go into that space, I'm willing to get vulnerable, uncomfortable, and I'm willing to surrender every single time. So my releases are huge.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest, I don't have a lot of trauma. Like, I've got stuff that I've had to deal with, but I don't have any, if I talk real trauma that some people go through, far out. Like
Capital T trauma.
Yeah, capital T trauma, that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
So I don't have all that stuff. But I've been open to it for 30 years on my gym, and it would get unloaded on me.
Yeah.
I'm taking someone for a session, 2 hours later in my office, and it's all come out.
Yeah.
What's your biggest fear?
I have no fear, I'm beyond fear.
You have no fear.
Beyond fear, beyond hope. Beyond fear, beyond hope.
All right. There's no fear.
I have, I don't like rodents. So if I see a mouse, if I see a mouse, man, I'm up on a chair.
There's no greater fear.
I'm not scared of them. They just make me feel
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. But that's the only thing. But I have no fear.
We know we're adding to your next challenge.
So many people
just put him in a box and
right, man. I've even got it tattooed on my knee.
Yeah,
hope and fear in Tibetan script. Because that's exactly where I'm at. I don't fear death. Death is a natural part of life.
How do you define success for you?
Good question. So I used to define it with the guise of financial success. Clearly that's not success. For me, success is how you show up for yourself first and foremost. Serve yourself so you can serve others, because that's my purpose. And honour yourself, honour your path, be integral, be a man of your word, respect others, be compassionate. That to me is success. For me, success is how many people you can positively affect while you're here on this earth. And I feel like I'm doing that in fucking spades. So, and I feel the work that we do in this lifetime is how we show up for the next lifetime. So.
And what have you learnt most about yourself being a father?
Oh, fuck.
That's a journey and a half.
Yeah, that's, when my first daughter came out, Georgia, I realised it wasn't about me anymore. You got to be selfless. I've grown more being a father than anything else, because it's challenging. Like, it's really fucking challenging. It's the toughest role you can give someone to be a parent. But now that I've done a lot more work on myself and continually doing that work, I feel like it comes from a different place. I've healed parts of me so I can then provide certain guidelines for them.
What about being in a marriage? as well.
Well, my wife's beautiful, but she's extremely challenging, as am I. So we've been together 30 years.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah.
30 years in March, married for 23 years on March 11 is our wedding anniversary. Yeah, and we're different people now. You know, like I knew her when she was 7 years old in primary school. Like, fuck. So it's been a really tough challenge. But what have I learned? I've learned that to honour the feminine, I need to connect with my heart, and that's been done since I closed my gym. I'm more present, and since I've been more present, she's opened up in ways I never imagined she would. After 23 or after 29 years.
Yeah.
So,
and do you think in terms of you could someone not just yourself, but people can live a full life, blokes could live a full life without being married or having kids, or even just having just one of them, not the other?
Good question.
Do you feel like, because some guys might just go, look, I just want to go career, or I don't want to get
so
whatever.
I'm pretty outspoken on this only because I've done both.
Yeah.
And I've also had the other flip side of it. I don't feel that you can be a complete human and experience life to its fullest unless you've been a parent. That's what I believe.
Interesting.
Yeah, very much so. But in saying that, there's certain people that can't have children. So, you know, there's that.
And some they shouldn't.
Yeah, and some they shouldn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, most definitely. Yeah. So I feel the growth I experienced being a father, it's hard to articulate. You can't even compare it. Like when you see your wife go through the rigours of labour and what comes out the end of it, and then they crawl, they walk, and then they get a fucking attitude. Seeing all those processes, it challenges every part.
Of course, yeah.
In ways that nothing else can challenge you like that. So I don't think you can have a 100% fulfilled life unless you've been a parent.
Okay.
In terms of having a partner, I feel having a companion you can share experiences with definitely elevates
quality of life, yeah.
Most definitely. Yeah, and sharing yourself with whether it's a male on male or female, you know, whatever. But sharing your energy with another human and intertwining your souls, why would you not want to experience that?
Of course.
There's power in that.
Do you feel also, like, especially with marriage or sacred union, whichever way you want to call it, do you feel that it has lost the meaning that it had, like, from thousands of years ago, where this whole process started? And people, because of the confusion also that is happening out there between the feminine and masculine dynamics and everything, they don't actually respect the process, and they're not actually committing properly to this union. And there is not education and understanding also of how deep the connection can actually go, and that it's a process that for as long as you commit to it, it can keep giving, and it can get deeper and deeper through the years and the decades.
Definitely, if both parties are willing to walk that path. It will continue to grow, but if someone's doing the work on themselves here and learning about themselves and connecting with themselves, but this person is stagnant, but when they come together, that companionship and that growth can continue with dual commitment. With equal commitment.
That's the thing. It has to come from both ends. If one of the parties is not willing to grow, you know, straight away, as soon as the other person shifts and changes and understands themselves even deeper, the other person I feel starts to create like resentment or resentment, and probably
resistance.
And probably feel, oh, I didn't marry that person. You know? But that's the thing. We're not supposed to stay.
Fuck no.
For the rest of our lives. Thing. That's why it's such a there's so much confusion in regards to that.
Yeah, because you could even be both at a certain point, and then your growth starts to. And even though you're both on a growing journey, the growth's in different directions, and then it's like. That's
why it's choosing a partner, man. If you choose a partner before you actually understand yourself,
it's dangerous.
And you don't know who you are. It's all just excitement. It's just all just hormones and all that stuff. And people commit to something when they haven't even committed to themselves yet. Like how how are you going to stay like on that path and allow yourself to flourish through that process if you don't know who you are, man?
So where's this education in schools?
That's the thing. Just conditioning, buy a house, get married, have a kid on your early 20s. You don't even know who the fuck you are.
Yeah, I know, of course.
What are you doing?
Even as simple as something as what they teach, and what when I was a teenager, about sex. Fuck, man, it's backwards. Let's talk what sacred exchange actually really is, and that's not taught in schools.
No.
Man has a penis, the woman has a vagina, and this goes in this hole, and this is how you get a baby.
It's mechanical,
It's mechanical. What the fuck? Like, that whole narrative needs to change before young boys will actually understand that when they anyway, you know what I'm going with that. And it's not to the OnlyFans page.
I was going to go back there. No. All right, so I'll ask you just your opinion on a few different random topics as well. So in terms of when you think like resilience and things like that, baby boomers versus millennials, who had it easier?
Who had it easier?
Who has it easier, or who has it easier? And obviously this has got some width to it as well.
Got some different width to it. Look, I believe the millennials, is that how we say it?
Millennials,
They're navigating through a world at the moment that we were never exposed to.
Correct.
I actually feel it's more challenging for them, if I'm being honest.
I agree,
but I feel it's up to the baby boomers to get involved and share some wisdom and provide a different, experience for them as well. So I would say the millennials, they've got it way harder than what we had in that respect. They're just exposed to so much stuff.
Getting pulled in different directions and the conditioning and all that sort of stuff.
I'm so glad I was brought up in Hollis. But I'm also glad that I've seen this side as well.
Yeah, because you're in between. What generation are you?
I don't know.
I know,
Ask me this question. They call me this and call me that. Call me whatever you want.
Just an old fuck. What is that? Yeah, so it's funny because there's so many. What do you reckon, Theo, in terms of baby boomers versus millennials? In terms of which, what was more difficult?
I was fortunate also that I experienced like both and all that stuff, and actually seeing millennials, what they get exposed to from such a young age and the confusion that comes with that. Oh man. That's why it's up to us, because we have seen something different to actually guide them properly and allow like all the newest generations to actually like, shift and take a different path,
Definitely. What about the term happy wife, happy life?
Disagree. Happy me, happy we. That's pretty good.
I'm fucking stealing that.
It starts here.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Starts here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of those things. It's just and you see a lot of guys they're like that. They almost abandon themselves and who they are for their partner, and you think they betray themselves. And you think for their partner, you think their partner's going to actually respect that guy. They're not going to. Yeah, exactly right.
And they're thinking also that they're honoring the relationship or the partner and all that stuff. But you have to honor yourself first, so that can happen, man.
I feel that's where infidelity may kick in sooner or later too.
I agree, 100%. What are your thoughts on balance in life?
I don't believe in balance. For me, it's harmony. Because if you're trying to achieve balance, one thing has to take focus and something else will suffer.
100%.
It's a balancing act, for sure. But it's being harmonious across everything.
Definitely.
It looks like.
And especially if you're really pushing the boundaries in different areas. One thing's if you're playing it safe and just a really watered down version of life, you can
it's quite
do it. But as soon as you start trying to push, whether it's in any component.
And that's where you just got to honour that time. This isn't going to last forever. I'm going to be here for a certain period of time, but the end goal is this, and here's the fruit at the end, but then I need to give this side attention.
Definitely.
So it's about finding harmony between all that, I think.
I listen to some podcasts now and I hear some women saying, they're almost saying, we don't need men anymore. Besides the fact that they're the wallet, they don't need men. I've heard many podcasts. I've heard many. And obviously it's not all women in general, but they're almost saying now that women are becoming more independent, they can make their own money. There's no real purpose for men. What's your sort of take on that?
You can start off. That's yours. Maybe have some No, I don't.
I'll set them up
afterwards. I don't think women need men. I don't think it's a matter of need.
Yeah.
I think that they can, both the masculine and the feminine can evolve to a higher place if they come together. But I definitely don't think. I think it's just such a beautiful concept to have masculine and feminine energies working together and intertwining together and sharing and stuff like that. But I don't think. So when we look at duality and polarity, you can't have one without the other, yeah? But then the question then is, well, we now have a lot of confusion. You fill out a questionnaire and there's so many different gender ticks that you've got to, well, what am I here? And that comes down to what you asked before. What does a true masculine look like and what's a true feminine? So if you're saying a woman doesn't need a man, well, then the flip side is if it's two men that are in love or two women that are in love, or if then someone recognises as a fucking unicorn, where are we? It's just all so fucking confusing. So no, I don't think women need men, but I definitely think it could be a more beautiful experience on this earth with the time that they have if there was union between the both.
Sure. And finally, what's the legacy that you want to leave? I save it right for the end. To affect as many souls on this earth while I'm here in a positive way, and to open up a portal and show them that there's a different path than the one that they're on, and a path that will honour them and take them to a place that they couldn't even dream of. My purpose is to serve and lift others up first and foremost. I believe that's what we're all here to do. But some people have got a lot of work to do before they can get there. So we always foresee death as a future event, but death is here right now. That's a bit dark and deep, but that for me is a fact. So the time is fucking now, and people need to stop hesitating. So my legacy would be to keep being me, keep delving into myself, keep elevating others, and hopefully that will have a ripple effect across many in years to come. And then they will have that same effect based on their experiences, where men stand up and women be the beautiful feminine that they can be, and we go back to how it used to be. Sure. It'll be a lot of work. That's why we need a lot of men and a lot of women doing a lot of work on themselves to sort of get us there.
And that's why it's beautiful in the retreats to have both men and women to see each other raw and exposed and vulnerable, but also see each other in their power when we've experienced that.
And you saw it firsthand also, like how women show up on that space also, man.
Of course. It's very different if you just had just males or just females. It's almost nice having a bit of a blend there.
And I think, the more we do this, the more exposure it's going to get, and the more we can have implemental, sustainable change across the board. So.
I appreciate you coming on today. You're doing great work. Awesome. You're doing great work, and the change that yourself and Theo are doing with me was amazing. And I can just tell it's only just begun. Yeah, and if anyone does want to sort of get in touch with you, how should they reach out?
Probably on Instagram, Onyx Elite Performance. There's links on there to my LinkedIn and website, and there's links to the retreats that we run. You can delve deep once you jump on the website.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for your time, my man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Cool.